essences he needs for his own Frankenstein monster project. What I don't get, however, is how to bridge the gap between the ending and the start. Only one traveler is allowed to be active at a time. The warden deactivated himself in order to prevent further travelers from being awakened. It's implied that our traveler, the protagonist, awoke despite this, which was the wild card. However, our predecessor is not the warden. It's a random corpse from which we take the anchor. So clearly, travelers have been appearing between the Pathfinder and ourselves. There's also the issue of how the traveler is Veronica. The beginning of the game shows us dropping in our sarcophagus and emerging as a factory-fresh traveler. We are not Veronica at the start, so when did that happen? The only thing I can figure is the warden did something to us between the first ascension and when we woke up in the cat room. There's quite the time skip there. I like that theory. That's a good theory, because he did have access to, like, our unconscious suit at that time. Either that, or when we returned for the third time, being corrupted by the essences. The reason I question this, though, is the warden's logs talk about how promised himself that he wouldn't interfere, but if it was his plan to make us into Veronica all along, why not interfere? Only thing I could figure out is we were supposed to undergo the procedure later, but the chair mishap forced it to happen earlier. There's a line from the warden where he tells us that he already explained everything to us in the workshop once already, but the audience are experiencing the event for the first time. I genuinely don't know what to think, because to me it feels like the story in the first part of the game doesn't mesh with the story in the rest. Almost like the writers came up with a twist late in the script writing process and didn't properly retrofit it into the rest of the game. I don't know. It's not very well explained. Let's see. Seeing if there's anything. Oh man, there's a lot of text here. I'm not sure how much of it is stuff that we don't already know. I think the implication is the Pathfinder had tainted all of the sleeping travelers with Veronica's essence, as they were all sleeping in the sarcophagi. Our traveler awakened by herself, he says in one of the logs. What exactly is the collective? What is the mission? What I gathered from that, good luck working that out for the rest of the night. See you, creatures. Can I highly recommend the channel Gaming Harry for nice summaries? Gotcha. So the collective, I believe the collective originally was supposed to be like, humanity is going to die, so we're going to grab a whole bunch of smart people and put them into this database, and thus their minds get to live on and save them from this plague. That's what I got from it. However, it obviously didn't turn out that way because the warden was using the idea of the collective for his own Frankenstein project, and not for its intended original use. And heck, even the people that we were getting were not getting, ascended. We were just using them for, like, stat bonuses. But yeah, that was definitely a thinker. If humanity died, how are travelers and pathfinders a thing in the first place? So my thoughts on that is one of humanity's last projects was to make the Traveler Pathfinder system, the collective. Like, I would assume it was, because they're not aliens, right? So I'm assuming it was a project of humanity, and it was like, continuing to go even after most of them died. But I don't know for sure. I don't think they ever really say that. Okay. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. They definitely don't spell everything out, so you're kind of left to make some guesses on your own. So, if ending 1 is the start of the plague, ending 2 is the start of the Pathfinder Warden, it makes sense ending 3 is the start of the Traveler. Yeah, possibly. Dude, that's crazy. That means that in a way, this game, every ending could be canon. I don't think I've ever played a game with multiple endings where they're all canon. That's pretty wild. Okay, chat, it's review time. First of all, I want to say that, because I feel that it should be said, I got this game for free. Bloober Team sent me a copy of it for free, saving me $60. I really appreciate that. That was very kind of them. They didn't have to, but they did. So I got to play this at no charge. However, I was not sponsored by them. They didn't pay me anything, nothing like that. I don't have to say good things. I could say whatever I want. So let's talk about a review for the game. What did I think of Cronos: The New Dawn? Visually, I think they did a great job. Obviously, everything was really dark and gloomy, but again, visually, I think they did a really good job with the game. Everything was really, really cool to look at, and it all made sense. The sound design, was adequate. I would say, like, messing with all the gadgets on your gun and stuff was like ear candy. I loved doing it. It was actually, it brought a weird joy to like reloading your weapons, having all the, all the little sound effects and stuff. So that was pretty cool. The story, I would say for the first half of the game, the story was fine. There was like, it was just like breadcrumbs, right? Like there was just like little breadcrumbs. You're just following your orders, but it was like intriguing and I was interested. But it wasn't like, 10 out of 10 or anything. But the second half of the game, I think the story really picked up. And that's when like we had enough stuff to theory craft and we were like, people in chat were talking and they were trying to figure out what was going on. And it was getting like really, really good. So I think like the second half of the story did a lot of the heavy lifting compared to the first half. Yo, I didn't know you could do that. Just a second ago, she did something I never realized you could do. It looked like she shot one of those timed bombs onto an enemy. It just stuck it right to him. I didn't know you could do that. I always stuck them to walls because they had like a sensor on them. What's something else? Controls, gameplay. It was fine. I've mentioned this already, but it felt like you were playing this really slow, clunky tin can. There was no dash or dodge or quick step movement. When you were meleeing, you couldn't move. So you had to run up to the enemy, then melee. If you started a swing right outside the range, you would not close the gap while doing it. Also, the enemies were not easy to kill. Like, I was running the skill from one of the extracted essences that boosted my melee damage dramatically, it said. And it was still, like, it was okay. But most enemies I couldn't melee to death. It very much felt like I was a weak, slow tin can. And most boss fights basically equated to run around, bait the enemy to get by explosive barrels and blow up the barrels, shoot them, repeat. I think, like, every single boss fight in the game, other than the final one, was that. Bait them next to barrels, blow up the barrels, use time magic to respawn the barrel, and just keep doing that. Now, I don't say that in a bad way, but it kind of felt like Resident Evil gameplay as far as, like, running around and managing your stuff and all. The flamethrower. I just saw the flamethrower. I think it was stupid you could only fire the flamethrower straight down. You fired it straight down and it AoE'd around you. You couldn't fire it in front of you. That took some getting used to. That was really weird. Having it be basically a melee range flamethrower. What else? The survival part of the game, because it's a survival horror. I think they should have leaned into it more. So the only reagents you ever picked up for crafting was chemicals or metal scrap. Just totally fine. But that's it. There were only two. And you use those to make your other stuff. And your inventory, the small inventory I had was maxed out. That is the first thing I maxed out. Like, I had points in almost nothing but inventory size. And it was like, your guns each took an inventory slot, the bolt cutters did, the ammo for the guns took an inventory slot, and then you had like 3 or 4 slots left. Maybe a flame canister or a grenade or something like that. So I really would have liked it if they had added a couple of more crafting items and just double the size of the inventory. Like, it was really dumb, because at the beginning of the game, there were moments where I had a pistol and a key and some ammo, and my bag was full. And it's like, dude, come on. A pistol, a key, and some box of bullets, that could all fit in a backpack, and you would still have 3/4 of the backpack empty. Like, some of it was stupid, all right? So I really, really wish that the inventory management was not as strict. And I don't mind inventory management. Chat, I've played a game called Guild Wars 2. I do not mind inventory management. I wish they had let me manage more inventory. I didn't get enough inventory to manage. So you were wearing skinny jeans? Yeah, that's it. I had the girl pockets. Yeah, you guys know girls don't get pockets. So I wish they had done more with that. If I were to dream upon a dream, I would say, change that a little bit. I would not have minded if I and the monsters were both faster, because again, it just felt like everything was like slow and clunky. But it was all right. Definitely, I think the story and the visuals carried the game. the gameplay of the game was fine, but it was not snappy. Like I told you guys when in the final boss fight when he would do the big explosion and I had to use the gravity boots to hop up to the other like platforms, I would like whip my mouse up and I'd be like click 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 click, and then it would go. Like it would take like 7 clicks to get the thing to lock on. So it was and then there was a few other minor things I wrote. Like for example, if your inventory was full and you found a healing item on the ground, you could not pick it up and use it unless you deleted something in your bag. So 1, you couldn't use items while your bag was full. 2, you could not set things down. You couldn't like set down your gun, pick up the heal, use it, pick your gun back up. You couldn't do that. You had to delete things to pick up things and use them, even if you're going to use them right away. So it was sometimes stupid. Because it'd be like, my bag's full. If I pick up that ammo, it's going to immediately go in my gun, and then it won't take up bag space, but you still have to delete something to do that. So those are things that I would change. It wasn't perfect. I would say, like, overall, maybe 6 or 7 out of 10. It was enjoyable. I have no regrets, but I would definitely change a handful of stuff if I could. But that was our playthrough of Cronos. Oh yeah, the saving system. Yeah, the saving system made me kind of rage quit early one night because there was a time when I died and it hadn't auto-saved and I hadn't found a manual save in like 30 minutes and I had to replay all that. Yeah, the saving system could be better also, true. But yeah, that was Cronos: The New Dawn. Very interesting game. Pretty cool how they made New Game Plus and every ending canon. Never seen a game do that. And once again, thank you to the Bloober team for giving me the free copy. That was pretty cool, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.